Sometimes it's sad because I look at the page and it's so many hours. It's so many hours of my life taken up by the study of this language where I can't really know what positive outcomes will come from it, where I can't really know if it'll matter.
What's up, guys? We are back with another one. And in this video, I want to talk about Eisel response to my video where I talked about his opinions on video games and quitting them. And it should be pretty interesting to go through this because his response had a lot of stuff that I didn't completely disagree with and some stuff that I definitely take issue with. So here we learn that apparently it's the quantity of time that makes Eisel think that you should quit video games. Well, you know what? You can manage your time and play games in moderation, and maybe it's not 12 hours a year. Also, I understand where he's coming from here to an extent. Like, you don't want to waste too much time playing video games, and I do think that the message to play less is actually a good message, and I used to be addicted to video games when I was younger for sure, and I still love video games, but, you know, I don't play them that much. I wasn't playing them hardly at all for like a decade, and I got back into them maybe like 50 to 100 hours. That seems to be reasonable.
This is the part of the equation where even the most honest interlocutors seem to become very evasive, uncomfortable, and strained.
Uh-oh, uncomfortable and strained. It's time to bust out the calculator.
50 hours per year playing video games. That would be 4 hours per month. Do you believe that this guy plays video games for only 4 hours per month? The two games he mentioned, one of them takes 40 hours to complete. It's a plot-based role-playing game. The other game he mentioned, Call of Duty, people pour huge numbers of hours into that game. I don't know how many hours this guy played.
So here's some loaded statements. When I put the 50 to 100 hour ballpark number, what I was saying is that that's more of like an average over like the last 5 or 10 years. I barely played any video games at all in 2015, 2016. I barely just got back into video games with PUBG in 2017 and 18, and that was basically like the only game I played with friends on nights when I had time to. And I just recently started getting back into it more because of COVID, because we're supposed to be inside, social distancing and making sure other people don't get sick. So it's actually relatively considerate to be inside playing video games, and it's also cool because you can do it with your friends online who live in other states or who you can't visit because of COVID. So this year especially, video games are actually a nice staple to have and to enjoy. If you were to look at what I was doing in those years where I wasn't playing video games, I was doing stuff like jiu-jitsu, MMA. I trained that all the time. I had a lot more stuff that I could do. I could go rock climb with my friends, and I'll be glad to get back to that. He talks about how he doesn't think he has a gym habit, but actually I've heard him in past videos mention that he thought that he spent too much time working out. So he is really focused on getting the most out of his time, which is great. That isn't a necessity.
And I suppose my point is, more fundamentally, no matter what the real answer happens to be, no matter how the math turns out, if you have the self-discipline to really write it down and face the facts, isn't it significant that so many of us struggle to be honest about this, that it's so hard to face up to it?
Yeah, I do think that it is significant, and I do think that if someone were to track their time, it would be a valuable thing to do so that you are getting the most out of your time. And again, that's why I said that I half agree with you, because I do think that we should try to moderate our gaming intake, unless we want to be like a pro gamer or something, in which case you got to play a lot and you got to get good at it. But if you're not going to do that, then, you know, you should probably prioritize your other goals over gaming, or you will lose time that could possibly be spent getting you towards those goals. And I want to mention one thing that I think he glosses over, and that's that people go through different phases. And, there's phases where you're just unmotivated and you really need some de-stressing and you really need just a little R&R just to come back to your usual self. And if you're playing video games for a while just to de-stress, and then that's not your normal habit and you're not playing it all the time, that's another story altogether. And I think that's also common for a lot of people. And that's how I am, is I'll play video games a lot and then I'll get sick of them and then I'll go on and do the other stuff that I want to do because, I de-stressed, I had my time doing what I wanted to do, and then that makes it so that I can move forward in a more effective manner.
Look, guys, it's not just video games, all right? I do have regrets about how much time I spend lifting weights in the gym. Ultimately, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, it's not going to matter how many push-ups I did this week. And in some sense, if I finish writing another chapter of the book I'm writing, or if I finish recording and uploading this video, and it changes just a few hundred people's lives, in a sense, that does matter.
Okay, so that is entirely dependent on your priorities. And if you think that matters, then for you that matters. That might not matter for someone else. And even more importantly, I think you kind of neglected to mention the fact that working out keeps your mind healthy, de-stresses you, and there's a ton of studies that show how beneficial it is for your mind to do cardio or to do heavy lifting. And it also actually makes it so you don't age as quickly too. There's different effects it has on the telomeres in your body. So there are a ton of benefits to working out.
In a sense, both what I can learn and what I can teach others really matters in a way that doing more push-ups or bench pressing more weight can never matter at all. And of course, the comparison between exercise and video games, really they're not comparable at all. But I have a little orange book and I write down in it how many hours I spend studying the Chinese language. And it's sad. It's sad to behold. Sometimes it's sad because I feel that I've worked so hard. But really, when you see the numbers written down on the page, it's not that many hours. And sometimes it's sad because I look at the page and it's so many hours. It's so many hours of my life taken up by the study of this language, where I can't really know what positive outcomes will come from it, where I can't really know if it'll matter.
All right, so this is interesting. So first thing I want to say about this is keeping a log of the hours you're doing different activities is probably actually a good idea for a lot of people. And I think it's cool and it's something I might consider. I think that can bring a lot of value to a lot of people and really make you realize where your time is going. Studying another language, it's really cool, but trying to assume that would be better than playing video games in some respect is, I just think, kind of a misnomer, I guess. When I play video games, I normally try to select the best of the best, and I try to select ones that are really good for my mind, because it helps me to develop a strategic mindset, and it helps me to organize my thoughts. And I think it's really cool when your mind is operating with this kind of organization and you just have this mental process that feels a lot more clear. Whereas when I'm not playing those kind of games, my mind is a little bit different. So it can affect how you think, and there's just a lot of depth that I think that Eisel doesn't consider about these things. If you play things right, if you do it right, it can offer you a net benefit. And if you're the type of person who gets super addicted and you just spend thousands of hours on video games or movies or something like that, then, I would say maybe you shouldn't even touch them. But actually, a lot of it depends on the person. And I think that he assumes that most people get addicted, which may or may not be the case. I'd have to see the evidence.
If I'll really be able to learn anything, if I'll be able to teach anything else, it'll be part of my personal progress, or if instead this is something that is holding me back. Sure, for all of us, a great deal of soul searching is in order. But no, I just don't think that any of these excuses for playing video games make sense. I don't think any of us has 50 hours, 100 hours, 200 hours, 300 hours to spare.
What do you mean we don't have those hours to spare? I mean, we have our whole life to spare, and I get where you're coming from. If you have important goals that you want to work towards, then that kind of time can matter. And I also will agree that if you spend too much time playing video games, it could actually hurt you in moments that you're not expecting it because you didn't put the time that you needed into what you wanted to do. So I actually am very critical of how I spend my time playing video games, and I think that it is important for everyone to do that. And I also wanted to tell you a real quick story about when I was younger. I used to be addicted to an MMORPG, so that's a massively multiplayer online RPG called RuneScape. And the game still exists to this day, to my surprise. But I was really addicted. It wasn't even a really good game back then. But it's kind of funny how it actually led me to a forum, a RuneScape forum, where I actually ended up learning how to type. And I talked to people who had a lot more experience in life than me. And I actually learned a lot when I was a kid from that kind of stuff. So just a little anecdote there. But at the same time, I also got really addicted to it, and I recognized this. So actually, when I got to high school, this was ninth grade, long time ago. Basically, I sold my account for $5 to a kid because A, I needed the money at lunch at the time, and B, the main reason that I did it was because I knew that I was addicted to it. And I knew if I sold my account to this kid, then I would never be able to play again. The irony is that I actually had items on the account, these rare party hats that were only dropped once, and they're worth like 5K a pop now, and I had a bunch of them, so that could have been like 25K. But looking back, I don't regret it. I can imagine how much more time I would have put into that. I don't play MMOs, so I actually do have a set of standards for what kind of games I play and how much time I commit to them.
When you do the math, if you can, with detachment, look at the numbers, I think you might be a little bit saddened to realize how much of your life you've lost to video games.
Okay, just real quick, I want to address that. As far as all the video games I played when I was younger, I would say if I had the opportunity, I would probably cut them down by 50%. Like, take those hours, 50% of the games I played when I was younger, and I would put those into skills, and I would put those into other things that I wanted to have developed. On the other hand, the other 50% I would keep for 100% sure, because it really developed me into the person I am. It introduced me to countless different ideas. I think that moderation is key, and if you can't moderate your time and you are spending too much time, then maybe you should consider abstaining. But if you can, and you can live a balanced life, then I think that might be the way to go. Do with your time what you think is best when you're really thinking about it and considering it.
This guy has the honesty to say that when he was younger, he was a video game addict, and I appreciate his honesty. My brothers grew up, obviously, in the same culture I grew up with. They don't sound like me. They don't talk like me because they don't live like me. All right? The decisions this guy made in the past and the decisions he's making right now to play video games, they have shaped the man he became.
They have shaped me, for better or worse, and in some ways for the worse, because, I did waste a lot of time when I was younger, and maybe I wasted a little time now. I'm not a perfect person, but if it weren't for video games, I might not even care about concepts such as morality and, making the world a better place, because these were concepts that were introduced to me through video games, and, it really shapes who you are when you're younger, even if you discount it. And when you're older, should you spend less time? Probably. It might be a good idea to cut down. But also, there are benefits, and it is a great thing to do in your downtime, because even though you choose what you do in your downtime, you don't really get to choose what de-stresses you. You don't really get to choose what is going to make you feel refreshed and what is going to make you most effective when you're doing stuff that does take effort and does take work. And I'm not saying video games don't take that too for like pro gamers and stuff, but there's only certain things that are going to give you the rest you need in order to be effective in other areas of your life. And you're going to be doing something in order to rest. You're not going to just keep studying languages, learning mathematics. Like, you're not going to just do all of this different stuff and not get worn down and not be ineffective at it if you don't take rests. And if video games are the way you want to rest, then I don't see a problem with that. I think it's a great thing.
And you may not realize what it is you're sacrificing by making the choice to spend all those hours playing video games. But what you're sacrificing is precisely the man you could have become.
So yeah, that's dramatic, but I can agree in some senses, 100%. Like, I do think if you put too much time into video games, you will regret it. But I also think if you do it in moderation and you use it as a activity where you're de-stressing and you don't allow yourself to be addicted and you have the mental discipline to not overindulge, I think that you can play video games and have it be a positive part of your life. So, I just see the nuances to this topic in a way that I don't think that Eisel is willing to examine as much. I get his points, and I do think that he makes some good ones, and I'm always willing to talk with him about it. So anyway, guys, if you liked the video, give it a like, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.